Hello and welcome to Standing Series Pose, where we are going to do some asana to help us ground in our core body. This can help us in so many ways in centering our mind and our body back into our physical body, but back into our core, where a lot of our strength and our knowledge and power comes from. But also can help us in kind of releasing the quads and the IT bands as we do our work of activism and healing from a place that we are sheltered in. Most of us are sitting too much. So I've designed this series so that we could, for the most part, be standing. And so to begin, I have here this kind of typical kind of, what's considered a yoga or a Mexican tray blanket, and I also have a yoga mat. You can feel free to, if I have a carpet that is like a short carpet, I've practiced on that. We won't be coming down on our knees, we'll actually be standing up for the most part of this pose, but sometimes I like to have cushion. Whatever you have under your feet, you want to make sure it's something that your feet can be solid and not slippery, and that when we're in the wide-legged stances, that you're not kind of feeling like the ground is moving underneath you. I've included my a chair here as an assistant prop. There will be times that I'll use it. I will say that in general, when we use the chair, we want to use it on the side where we're needing the balance. So it's right now, my chair is on my left side. So when my left leg is back, I'll keep my the chair on my left side, and then vice versa. And so we'll begin today in a Tadasana. I'm gonna fold up my blanket because I don't think I'll need it. And so we'll start at the top of the mat, or at the top of where you're standing. And I really want us to ground down. So we'll start with our toes lifted. And you bring the metatarsals, or the ball of the feet together, and the heels slightly apart. And what that does is that it allows the lower back some space to release. If you're feeling discomfort in the lower back at this point, you can also just bring your feet hip-width distance apart. And so I'm probably going to practice that way because I'm feeling a little discomfort and tightness in my hips and my lower back. And so keeping your toes lifted, bring your pinky toe down, and this can be an intention. You don't have to do it right or do it well, but we're really just trying to almost like with our fingers fan our toes down. Let the toes rest on the mat, lifting the heels, lifting the arches, and let the arch lift kind of translate into activating the inner thighs. See if you can drop and have the tailbone be heavy. Soften the knees. And you put your left hand on your lower abdominal, and we'll put our right hand on our solar plexus. And if it feels comfortable to you, you can either close your eyes or drop your gaze, maybe about 2 or 3 feet in front of you. And coming to your breathing. Where are you breathing in your body without making any changes? Just be aware of your breath. And see if you can, with the hand that's on the solar plex, kind of bring the ribs, the lower ribs, a little closer together. Lift the shoulders and drop the back of the shoulder blades into the body. And so what we're trying to do is to create a feeling of extension through the middle part of the core. And at this point, I'm going to ask you to begin to bring some intention into your breathing. And so I'm going to teach us a breath that oftentimes gets paired with asana practice, which is ujjayi breath. And so as you're deepening your breath, and you might notice your hands moving, and that's the great thing about touch. It gives us immediate feedback. And so if your hands are moving as you breathe, the breath is moving deeper into your body. And so from here, on your next exhale, see if you can make an H sound with like your mouth open. And we'll do a few more rounds of those. And sometimes I think as if I'm fogging up a window. A few more. And on your next exhale, instead of opening your mouth, keep the H sound in the back of your throat and close your mouth. And this is ujjayi breath, or victory breath. And so we're going to continue to practice with ujjayi breath. Bring the hands, kind of palms gently touching each other. This Anjali Mudra, this kind of asking, this is translated to prayer, but when we pray, we're asking, or we're setting our mind to what it is that we want to offer or focus on in our practice today. And today we're really going to be coming into our core body and allowing the core body to support the release of the upper legs, and then release the hands. And so I'm going to come up to my mat a little bit, lifting the toes like we did in the beginning, fanning the toes down if that's accessible to you, but really holding really gently to whatever your practice is now. Hands in prayer, and then drop the hands right down by your side. So palms facing forward. And notice here, I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see. So notice here that my hands are in front of my torso. And what that does is that allows my shoulder blades to rest in their kind of home base, which is in the back of the body. And a lot of times when we're on computers or typing and texting, our shoulders tend to do this, and some of us, they tend to do this. And you see how my arms go back. And so just by positioning my arms, giving my shoulders a space to breathe, and see if you can press the floor against you as you lift up in the torso. I'm just going to turn back around here. And so from here, whether your feet are hip-width distance apart or your ball of your toes are together and your heels are apart, you're going to bend the knees here, and you're going to bring the arms out to the side like you're a bird. And you're going to just bend over the tops of your legs halfway, so you're almost like an L. Give a deep ujjayi or H sound breath here. And on the next exhale, bend your knees a lot and come to a bended knee forward bend. And so from here, especially if you get kind of lightheaded and dizzy, I bend my knees a lot. Keep looking between your calves. And then if it feels accessible to you, just hold the elbows. And breathe into the back body here. See if you can breathe into the back of the lungs. Bring some breath into the space between the upper ribs and the pelvis. And then on the next exhale, let your arms relax down. Inhaling here, let the head get very heavy. And on the next exhale, roll up. Vertebra by vertebra. Take your time. Sometimes I give myself a little inhale, pause, and an exhale, roll up. Rolling the shoulders back. And coming back to the palms facing forward. Ball of the feet pressing down into the earth. Relaxing the eyes. And if you're practicing in a place where it's hot, just let the sweat, be like it's just washing away anything that you need to release. And so we're going to take a few of those, what I like to call those like kind of bird dives over the upper legs. And then each time we do it, see if you can straighten your legs a little bit once you get down. So we're going to try to open up the back of the thighs here. So inhaling the arms up in wings really wide. Make sure the shoulder blades are down. On the exhale, belly button in. Bend the knees, soften the knees a little bit, and come down all the way. Ride the exhale all the way down. Inhaling here, see if you can straighten the knees a little bit, holding the elbows. Press the feet into the ground and the arches up, and see if you can lift your hips up any amount. You feel the back of the hips, the back of the thighs, maybe the calves opening. Inhaling here, exhaling, release the arms. Let the head stay heavy, bending the knees. Engage the belly button and allow the front body to roll the back body up. Remember, you can pause here, inhale, and then exhale all the way up. So it's like a slow elevator. Rolling the shoulder back. Opening the palms. Letting the shoulder blades rest back into the back body. See if you can lift the top of the ears up and create more space in the spine, the upper spine. Inhale the arms up like a bird, like a condor. And on the exhale, belly button in, fold over the tops of the legs. When you arrive, you can hold on to your elbows or your forearms, whatever feels accessible and spacious. Sometimes if I'm very tight in my neck spine, I might just hold on to my forearms. A few breaths here. And on the next exhale, release your arms. You might want to give a little no and yes nod to the head, just to make sure there's no tension there. Pressing into your feet, roll up, belly button in. Inhale, you can exhale. You can always stop whenever you like. And once you get to the top, arms open. Soft gaze, soft gaze. Great. So now we're going to just experiment with some balancing. And it'll also help us kind of open up the tops of the legs and the hips. So balancing is really about being able to gather yourself up in one side of the body in the same way we would on both sides. So we have the chair here on the left side, so we're going to work the left leg up in the balance. So now the leg that we'll balance on is the right, so put all of your weight into your right. And notice I didn't say like kind of come down on your right hip, but just kind of shift your weight over to the right. And place your toe onto the ground and your heel on to the shin or just above the ankle. And so here, see if you can let the tailbone get really, really heavy. And you can play here just kind of by putting one hand in front of the sternum, just exploring where your balance is today, and then the other. And you still have the toe on the ground, so you can still use that as a kind of another point, although it's very close to the right foot. So it's, it's very close to that gathering all of kind of balance and the weight on one side of the body. And so you can stay here. Or if you'd like to explore a little bit, you can bring the whole foot to the calf. And you want to make sure it's on the calf and not the knee. So here you might have to pull up a little bit more out of the back of the right hip. Lifting here, strong ujjayi breath. Shoulder blades down. And so you can stay here. So that's the benefit of having kind of the chair, because now we have like another leg that we can rely on. And if this is in your practice or you want to try, you can put the heel up onto the inner thigh. Sometimes I'll hold the ankle too, so you can practice this way, but still lifting up out of that right hip, dropping the shoulder blades. A few more breaths here. And then on the next exhale, slowly, wherever your foot is, slowly bring that foot down, find ground, and shake it out. Good, that's wonderful. So, because we have two sides, we'll practice on both sides. All right. So here we are again, finding both feet. And now press into that left foot. Pressing into that left foot now. Bring the right heel up to the kind of mid-calf with the toe on the ground. And so from here, kind of find your balance. And so this is Vrikshasana, which is tree pose. And so, and like a tree, the top waves, a tree's not all trunk, there are branches and leaves, and so there is movement here. It's not a still pose. The fact is that no pose is ever still because we're breathing. And then on the next inhale, you can inhale the right sole to the right calf, the left calf. Remember not to put it on the knee. And lift up out of the back of the hip. So usually for me, I have to lift up out of the back of the hip. But for some of us, it might be out of the side or the front, because we all sit differently. So see if you can create length in the space that you might usually sit in when you're either standing or actually seated. And you're welcome to place that right foot higher up. We'll see if that's where my practice is living today. You can hold it there, or you can, whatever is accessible. And like I said, part of like finding tree for me is like finding where I can be most steady, as opposed to still. And so today, like most days, one side of my body is practicing in the way it needs to, distinct from the other. So when you're ready, you can fall out, or you can gently come out. And just shake it out. And so we'll go back, put the chair on the other side. And so we'll do some standing poses. And the idea of the standing poses is that we're standing down through the whole leg and thinking about the leg really starting at this kind of mid-section of the body around the navel area. And so as we're engaging the abdominal so that the legs and the quads and the IT bands and the hip flexors don't have to bear all the responsibility of standing, and that we actually can use the whole leg. And so we'll start with a lunge. So we're going to bring our feet, it's going to be like a little wider than hip width distance apart. Not if you have a mat, not mat width distance, we're not doing a wide-legged stance, but just like a little wider. And you'll understand once we get into this. So you're going to bring your left leg back, and you want to keep the back heel up. So this is like a runner's lunge. And then I'm going to say, bring that right leg out wider. You want to make sure that the right knee is always over the ankle to protect the knee. And if you want to lengthen your stance, I just kind of wiggle that back leg back. Now, it's really up to you. I have a big chair, so I have a lot of points that I can hold. I try to hold closest to where my shoulders can be square. And so what I'd like you to do is with the heel up, I want you to bring that knee forward and that heel back. And so that's an action in the pose that usually when we start to breathe that ujjayi breath, you can start feeling the release in the front of the quad. You want to keep the hips square. And again, you certainly can use the chair. And we'll just kind of place our hand here on the quad and keeping the knee open. Sometimes my knee will travel, as you can see. So keep the knee wide, inhaling here. And then on the exhale to come out, we're going to bring our torso forward a lot and try to weigh into that right foot and bring that left foot forward. And just stand and notice just the effects of the pose on wherever it had effect. And if you notice that it had more effect in the leg that is forward than the leg that is back, that what I'll do is that I'll ask that you think about making sure that your pelvis is in its own place and that you let the leg travel. Because a lot of times, our body has a habit way of moving in every way, whether we're walking or practicing something physical, sitting or sleeping. That means our muscles have a habit way of engaging. So yoga oftentimes is about really disrupting those patterns so that we can bring some balance into the way in which the mind and the body can come together. So the next side. And just like in tree pose, you might, like I noticed, you'll notice that each side is different, and be curious about that. And by being curious, attend to it with both interest and attention. Because I think a lot of times we want things to be the same, and that's not really what brings balance. It's giving each side what it needs. So here we go. So we'll take the right leg and we'll extend the right leg back. I'm going to bring my left leg a little forward because I think I moved back on my mat. And so again, left leg wide, right leg wide. If you're on a mat, it's even okay if it's mat width distance apart, because what we're trying to do is give the pelvis room so it can be square. Bend the front knee a lot. Keep the back heel down, and now start to ujjayi breath. And as you breathe, let the front knee go forward and the back heel go back. Keeping the navel engaged, because that's going to really protect the lower back. And sometimes it's really okay to put the hand on the abdominal as, again, a reminder. A few more breaths here. Keep that opposite action going. And torso goes down, and then press into that front leg, or you can drag it or walk it. There's no right way to get up. The safest way is to make sure that the knee is bent. Okay, so now we're going to do a kind of forward bend. And so we're going to bring our legs wide. I'm bringing my legs off the mat just so you can see. And notice here that they're just about a little bit outside of my shoulders. If we stand too wide in the forward leg, then we're going to do a lot of damage to the hamstrings sometimes. We're going to overextend parts of our body. So we want to be able to support the lengthening of the muscles and the tendons in our body, and not to overtax them. So I'm going to lift my toes here, and I invite you to do the same, because that will help activate the inner thighs. You'll put your hands on your hips, and if you know that you have tight hamstrings, or sometimes going forward can cause you to get dizzy, bend your knees right away. because really what we're going for is a top of the hamstring kind of rotator stretch. This is not about how straight your legs can be when you go down, but it is about how lengthened your spine can be. So inhaling here, keep the back of the neck long, and then on the exhale, belly button in, and just bow down over your legs. So think about your torso bowing down over your legs, long, long spine, long, long spine. And when you get to a place where you can hang out for a few ujjayi breaths, you can bend your knees a lot. You can drop your toes if you want, or keep them lifted if you want to work that way. You can bend your knees a lot and just let your head hang. From here, you can also start to work kind of opening up the backs of the hamstrings, kind of the inner kind of rotators, and all those muscles just underneath the glutes. If this feels kind of intense, and just push up a little bit, you can just with the action of your sit bones, so if you can locate your sit bones in your mind's eye, lift your sit bones up, 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 up. Keeping the knees soft or bent, it's really up to you. Allow the head to hang. And then slowly bending your knees, drop your head, and roll up one vertebra at a time. Beautiful. All right. And so we'll end this very short series. So I do recommend that, you can certainly practice these poses, just the lunge. These are things that you can just do one of the asanas for a longer period of time. Between meetings, before you go to bed, especially if you're seated a lot, the lunge is really, really wonderful. You could even add like a little torso twist in it if you wanted to, if you kind of worked up to that. Keeping the actions within the pose. For the tree, you can extend your arms up if you kind of wanted to go for some more balance, And in the extended leg forward pose, you can start to really lengthen your legs. So, these are things that you can explore in your practice. But just to kind of end, we'll end in a mountain pose, in like a, kind of honorable strength stance, relaxing the eyes. And just taking a moment here to just drink in, this brief and yet really deep practice. Knowing that the work of the practice has been done. There's nothing more that you need to do. So all you have to do is to just allow it to be. And then you can, if you have your eyes closed, you can kind of start to blink or flutter them open. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Thank you so much for your practice. Continue, continue, continue.